This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today is the president and CEO of Skyharbour Resources, Mr. Jordan Trimble. Jordan, it's been a bit. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. It's been a little while, so it's good to catch up with you. We've had quite a bit of news flow in the last couple of months and a lot more coming up. So great timing to catch up.
Well, let's get right into it. You've been busy on multiple fronts. Partner-funded exploration that's moving ahead. You've strengthened your team here recently, and I want to get into all of that because I think we're going to close the year out in very strong fashion. But before we get to the company-specific news, we have to talk sentiment because there's been a ton of catalyst in the uranium space, especially this past month. Have to get your take on all things Microsoft, a number of developments with 14 of the biggest financial institutions, pledging financing mechanisms for uranium production and development of critical metals in North America. So just overall thoughts on the sentiment in the space right now. It's a lot of exciting stuff going on.
Well, you covered off two of the bigger developments in the last month here, but look, the sentiment has improved quite a bit here just in the last few weeks, coming out of what was a fairly choppy summer. We spoke about this. The fundamentals were, had not changed, and if anything, were just continuing to improve. So there was clearly a disconnect between the equities and in particular the long-term uranium contract price, which has continued to move higher, even though we've had some volatility in the spot price. But as you pointed out, some major developments recently with Microsoft signing a $16 billion power purchase agreement with Constellation to basically provide the energy for their data centers, some of their data centers over a 20-year period. And it just so happens to be the restart of 3 Mile Island, which I don't think anyone was expecting would restart. So that really reinvigorated the market, sparked the market just a few weeks ago. And shortly thereafter, the announcement of during the Climate Week in New York, 14 of the largest banking institutions globally announced that they were getting behind that pledge that was made at the COP conference about a year ago, where now 25 countries have signed a pledge to triple nuclear capacity by 2050. So it's one thing to have the governments on board. It's another thing to have the financiers in these large financial institutions getting behind it. So that both of those headlines really lit a fire under the industry here and helped to provide or spark the rally that we saw in the last few weeks. But, there's been a couple of other notable developments that I think are worth highlighting as well. Obviously, the Kazakh news in August, which, had kind of a mixed reaction in the market. There was a bit of a head fake with the news from Cameco that their JV production had declined, and then Kazakhstan came out with news, even though the net sum of it was a revision downward of 2025 guidance by 17%. The market, as we know, market expectations can be a little finicky. So we saw some choppiness, but bottom line is, Kazakhstan is still having issues with their production, ramping up production, in particular at some of their new development projects that are coming online. So that was the bear case for this commodity for many, many years, was that Kazakhstan could flood the market, and they simply have not done that. And we're continuing to see globally on the demand side just a much stronger market for an electrification, the need for electricity globally, the demand, which has been flat, in particular in the U.S. for almost 20 years. We're seeing rising electricity demand, data centers in particular, which we've talked about on previous interviews. The electricity demand from data centers alone is expected to increase tenfold by the end of the decade. And we're seeing countries around the world revising their prior policies towards nuclear power. whether that be with new power plants, whether they're conventional larger plants or the advent of the SMR coming online. We're seeing countries that even 6 or 7 years ago were looking to phase out their nuclear power generation, completely reverse their policy. So you've got these plant life extensions occurring routinely. You've got the restarts, as I mentioned, 3 Mile Island. Palisades is another good example. So the demand side is incredibly robust right now. And that's something, again, I think 3 or 4 years ago was not expected by the market. Now, the supply side, there's a structural supply deficit, as we talked about at length. And again, when you have the top producer, Kazatomprom, having to revise their guidance down significantly, you're seeing that have an immediate impact in the market. So the market is particularly sensitive to these supply disruptions or shocks, and that's been another key driver for this upward momentum that we've seen with the uranium price over the last several years. So very exciting time for the commodity. Again, I get asked this a lot. What inning are we in? How much more does it have to go? Is this trade long in the tooth? I do not believe that is the case whatsoever. At about $80 a pound, where you've got currently both the spot price and the long-term contract price, just slightly above $80 a pound. We're a far cry away from the previous high in the mid 2000s, which was about $130 to $140 a pound in the spot price. So inflation adjusted, that's about just over $200 a pound in today's prices. And the market was completely different then than it is now. You've had major cost inflation over the course of the last, in particular the last few years, but over the course of the last 15 to 20 years. And so the incentive price, your average marginal cost of production, all-in cost of production globally, is much, much higher. So I foresee much higher prices for the commodity, and I think it's still very early on in this bull market.
How is Skyharbour? We got to get Skyharbour, right? How are you positioned for it? You've been busy. I mentioned advancing exploration with partners on properties that are joint ventured. You've strengthened your board here recently, and obviously have catalysts of your own. Can we go through those here?
Yeah, so look, we're in great shape right now to take advantage of this rising tide with what is now the third largest mineral tenure holding in northern Saskatchewan, the Athabasca Basin, with over 1.4 million acres of uranium properties or interest in uranium properties across that's 29 projects in total. As we've talked about at length, we've got our 2 core projects, our 2 advanced stage exploration assets that we're actively drilling and advancing. That's Russell Lake and the adjacent Moore Lake project. We've just announced in the last month here, drilling recommenced at Moore Lake. So we're planning a few thousand meters there to follow up on the results in the drilling that we carried out earlier this year, which, as you may recall, delivered some very strong high-grade results, 7.3% over 3 meters. Within that, there was grades as high as 15% U3O8, and it's, again, relatively shallow, high-grade mineralization at the Maverick zones. So we're continuing to expand that high-grade structural corridor called the Maverick corridor. There's several high-grade lenses on that, predominantly sandstone hosted, but we have found some higher-grade mineralization in the basement rocks. So there's still good upside potential at depth and along strike. So that drilling has just commenced, and we'll have news out and results out from that later this year. We are then planning to continue working at our Russell Lake project, our other co-flagship advanced stage exploration asset adjacent to Moore Lake, just south of the McArthur River mine, northeast of the Key Lake Mill, and adjacent to Denison's Wheeler River project. Earlier this year, as you know, we made a notable discovery. It's still very early on in that discovery process, but we intersected a high-grade zone of up to 3% U3O8 over a half a meter, and that was within 2.5 meters of just under 0.8%, one of the best drill results historically at the project, and relatively shallow at about 340 meters. And interestingly as well, it's sandstone hosted. So the follow-up to that high-grade discovery will be carried out here starting later this month and take us right through the remainder of the year into the new year. So that's a pivotal program for us. We're very, very excited to get back to work there and drill another 4,000 to 5,000 meters at Russell, and with a particular focus on that new Fork Zone discovery, and looking to hopefully expand on the high-grade zone that we discovered there earlier this year. So the two main projects are going to continue to generate a lot of news and further potential for high-grade discovery, which would be a key catalyst for the company and our shareholders. But we've been very active as well on the other part of the business, which is the prospect generator business that we built. So as you know, we have a number of partners, either JV partners or option partners, and we just announced in the last few days a 8th partner company, UraX. It's a private company run by some mining executives out in Toronto, has a very strong financial backing as well. They're planning to go public, so it's a good group, a good team to be working with. And we just announced an option agreement on 2 of our projects, the Bolt project and the South Dufferin project. And they can earn an initial 51% by spending, this is combined project consideration, so exploration funding, cash and share payments, a total of $4.6 million over a 3-year period. And then they can essentially buy out the project for a total of $9.8 million. Again, that's combined project consideration over a 5-year period. So a pretty good deal for Skyharbour and our shareholders. We're excited for UraX to go in and advance these projects. They have lots of strong exploration upside potential, in particular at South Dufferin, which is a project that we acquired just over a year ago, and it's drill ready. There's mineralization at the project. It's on trend to a high-grade deposit that Cameco owns just to the north, and that's a project that warrants a lot of follow-up work. I believe there is a good possibility that they can go in there and they can discover something very, very material. So that was the most recent announcement. So that brings our totals in terms of our prospect generator business to 8 partners. 3 of those are joint ventures. 5 of them are still actively earning in, and the combined dollar amount of exploration funding, cash and share payments coming in, potentially, assuming all the partner companies complete their respective earnings, is now well over $85 million in exploration funding, cash and share payments potentially coming into Skyharbour. So of those 8 partner companies, I just talked about the newest one, but we are expecting a handful of the other ones as well to be either drilling or carrying out exploration programs in the next 6 to 12 months.
Jordan, before you go, I got to ask you, you recently strengthened the team. You added some new people, a lot of experience, history of success there. Can you speak to the additions?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, this is a very exciting time for the company, and we've added 2 senior people to our team, both on the technical side and on the management and capital market side. So starting just a few weeks ago with Sardar Donmez, who joined us very recently, earlier in September. And Sardar comes to us with almost 20 years of experience working in the Athabasca Basin. Notably, he was a senior geologist at Denison for 17 years with a focus primarily on Wheeler River, which, as you know, is adjacent to our co-flagship Russell Lake project, very similar geology. And so he is a match made in heaven, to be perfectly frank, given he was there at Wheeler River during the discovery of Phoenix and Griffin, right through to the feasibility study a few years ago. So he knows the rocks, he knows the area very well. Denison's been one of our largest corporate shareholders, strategic partners for a number of years, so it's a great fit. And he joins us as our VP of exploration, so a significant addition to our geological team in Saskatoon. And then more recently, we brought on a gentleman, Brady Rack, who joined us from, he was a broker at Ventum, where he was a top producer and has over a decade of capital markets experience. He's joined us as our VP of Business Development, so he brings a wealth of Canadian capital markets experience, and he's going to be working with me here in Vancouver. So two great additions to the team. Both of them see the potential and the growth that Skyharbour offers investors, and we're thrilled to have them join at this real important time for the company.
A lot to like, exciting times in the space. Jordan, the catch-up was overdue. I suspect we'll have news to talk about here on a consistent basis moving forward. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Gerardo.
All right, we'll chat again soon. Hey everybody, Gerardo Del Real here. If you're enjoying the content that you just saw, you can let us know in 3 simple steps. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please share across your network and on social media. Take care, everybody.